Welcome back to Convos from the Couch. I'm Nicolette Leanza, and I'm joined today by therapist Emily Broad, and she'll be walking us through what dissociation looks like and sharing practical grounding tools to help us reconnect with our bodies and feel more present in the moment. So, welcome, Emily. Great to have you on.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to become a therapist.
My name is Emily Broad. Preferred pronouns are she, her, hers. I am an independently licensed social worker. I have been a social worker for 12 years and a therapist for 6. My trauma work, or my specialty, is trauma work, mostly using EMDR and some DBT informed skills to help trauma survivors and others regulate their emotions more effectively. I always wanted to be a therapist, even back when I got my bachelor's degree in social work. However, I knew I needed to grow professionally and personally before I would be ready to counsel. I actually worked licensing foster parents before I got my master's degree. And while during my master's degree, I did my internship in college counseling at Wright State, and I've been providing therapy ever since.
That's great. You sound like you really love what you do.
I do.
Great, great. So, as we dive in here, what is dissociation and what are some of the signs that someone may be experiencing it?
Here. So, dissociation is essentially being disconnected from yourself and your experience. Most people experience some level of dissociation, and it's a healthy way to disconnect from a stressful situation to help someone get through. So, for example, if you've ever zoned out watching your favorite TV show or after a long, stressful day and gotten so focused on whatever you were doing that you didn't realize how much time had passed, then you probably experienced dissociation. It's our brain's way of getting through a really stressful event or overwhelming event without kind of losing it or flipping our lid, for lack of a better way of putting it. It becomes a problem when people experience it too much or it negatively impacts their life, like at work, at school, in their relationships or other important activities. Some common examples of dissociation could look like flashbacks, feeling like things aren't real, feeling disconnected from yourself, such as feeling like you're watching yourself live your life rather than actually living it. Just some
Mhm.
examples.
Yeah, I think I've seen more out there on social media, some of the terms that we know that as therapists we're familiar with, but the derealization, depersonalization, I feel like I've been seeing
Mhm.
people use those phrases a little bit more. So this is exactly what we're talking about. So
Mhm.
thank you for giving those examples. So what are some of your go-to grounding techniques for clients experiencing or just people experiencing a dissociation, and how do you tailor it even to different individuals?
Yeah. So my biggest grounding skills, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I found a lot of people have already heard about it. I tell people don't get caught up in 5 of this, 4 of that. It's really just
Right,
using
right.
your 5 senses. I
Mhm.
teach it as naming 5 things you can see, 4 things you can physically feel that are not distressing, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can taste, and 1 thing you can smell. Because I find in most public environments, it's easiest to name things you can see and feel, and hardest to name things you can smell and taste. If it's
Mm.
Thanksgiving dinner, you could probably name 50 things that you can
Yeah,
taste and,
fair
and
point.
smell. And so you can make
Mhm.
it tailor it based off of what works best for you. Breathing skills are a big one, whichever your favorite one is. There's square breathing and triangle breathing and 4, 7, 8. So, again, whichever one works for you. So, from my DBT background, love describe, participate, observe, those kind of skills, which is again similar to that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, but noticing what you're experiencing, whether with words or not, but also really just doing one thing at a time and being fully present in that particular experience. You're right, though. I do have to consider people's different experiences as to what's going to be best for them because no skill is going to work for every situation. That's why we want to have a toolbox of things we can work
Mm.
on. But things I need to take into consideration if somebody's neurodivergent. So, for
Oh, yeah.
example, if somebody has like autism, they may not do well with certain senses, may feel more overwhelming than others. And so they may have to, for example, tailor 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 a little bit differently so that if they're feeling too physically overstimulated, maybe we need to think about something else. Or if they're overstimulated, maybe 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 might not be helpful. Maybe they just need to work on like lowering their stimulation level, like
Right.
maybe putting in some headphones or turning off the lights, that kind of thing. ADHD is a very interesting one. I usually tell people only do one thing at a time, but I'm like, my caveat is for if you've got ADHD, I would actually encourage you, if you're doing something that's like a mundane activity like washing the dishes, have something on in the background that is neutral, like that you've listened to a million times, like maybe your favorite episodes of Friends or whatever your favorite TV show is, so that you can be interested enough to avoid the racing thoughts that can come with ADHD, but not so interested that you're not doing the neutral activity. So again, neurodivergence makes a difference. Health conditions like POTS, EDS, severity of trauma. A lot of my trauma survivors, because that's my specialty, don't do well with a lot of sitting meditation. And so if I'm going to talk more of a grounding technique, I might be more active in nature as opposed to more still.
Oh my gosh, those are great techniques. And I loved how you did very much specify it to different individuals. So thank
Mhm.
you.
Absolutely.
So, how do you work with clients to develop better body awareness, especially those who struggle with disconnection from physical sensations?
So the first thing I talk with people about there is that some things can be done in therapy and some things don't get done in therapy. So in therapy, I would say things like body scans, where they're scanning like and checking like how's my head feeling, how's my shoulders feeling. I always like to joke knees and toes, but again, just checking in with how your body is feeling, and you can do it slowly or quickly. I encourage people when they're doing it slowly to make sure they're not only looking up for things that might be going wrong or be difficult, but also things that are going well,
Mm,
because we want to have a balanced sense of gratitude of what's going right, along with watching things that might be uncomfortable. Because again, remember with dissociation, we're disconnected because our body feels overwhelmed. And so if we're
yep.
only thinking about the hard things, it's going to be too hard and too scary that your body's going to want to dissociate more. But if you can see, hey, there's still good things, even if there's also the hard things, it can make it feel a smidge less overwhelming.
Hmm.
Outside of session, I'd say yoga, Tai Chi, any slow but intentional movement. Another thing I've talked with people about is if you can find a trauma informed therapist, again, because I come from that trauma lens, a massage therapist can sometimes be helpful
Oh,
to help you
yeah,
reconnect with your body. But again, you want to make sure that they are trauma informed, that they're very much communicative of what they're doing, and respect, of course, any boundaries.
of course, definitely. So, how do you help clients build tolerance for uncomfortable emotions or sensations without automatically dissociating as a protective response?
Okay. So, what I think about is mindfulness, and remember, it can be active mindfulness or more of a passive mindfulness. So, passive would be like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or a guided
Hmm.
meditation, that kind of thing. I think I to encourage people to think about it as prescriptive and preventative. So,
Hmm.
prescriptive mindfulness is for I am already really overwhelmed, I've been dissociated, and I need to ground myself back in the moment. And that is just truly trying to lower the intensity of your emotions. Preventative mindfulness, on the other hand, is number one, just strengthening your ability to stay present without getting overwhelmed. And so think of it as like exercising if you're like trying to weight lift more. You're not
Hmm.
just going to go to the gym and lift 200 pounds. You
Right.
have to work up to it. So the same thing
Yes.
is true with being mindful with dissociation. But the other half I talk with people about preventative mindfulness is intentionally putting yourself in a stressful situation skillfully. So this could look like, think of it like a rubber band or a hair tie. Like when you first pull it out of the packet, it's usually pretty rigid and it doesn't really go around your hair very many times. But if you stretch it over time, it gets bigger. You don't
Hmm.
just pull it as hard as you can, because if you do, it's going to break. But if you just lightly pull it and then let it go, and then lightly pull it and let it go, it's eventually going to get bigger. And so if you think of that, it's like you're stretching your window of what you can tolerate
I
by
love
putting
that.
yourself in uncomfortable
Yep.
situations.
Mhm.
But then you want to follow that up with some prescriptive mindfulness, knowing that you're probably going to feel a little bit disconnected or maybe a little stressed, so that you don't go into that intense dissociation.
Oh my gosh. Great way to describe how to do that. Yeah. Any other takeaways you'd like to share?
I would say the biggest thing is to remember there's nothing wrong with you as a person. This is something that you're experiencing. What you have been through that have caused you to experience this is not your fault. And there is hope for healing.
I love that. There's hope for healing, for sure. Because I think a lot of times people do think that they're never going to feel better or get better. So I love that you're putting it out there, that hope for healing, for sure. Very important message to put out there. So thank you very much, Emily, for sharing all your knowledge and information on this very important topic to help people get back into their bodies, being more aware of their bodies. So thank you again.
And thank you for having me.
I'd also like to thank the team behind the podcast, Jason Clayton and Juliana Whitten. Thank you for listening to Converse from the Couch. Take care, everyone.